Okay, to help us work out what all of this means, we are joined by David Nelson. He is the chief strategist at Belpointe. David, thanks very much for joining us. Great package by Owen there. Really a lot to talk about here, so let's get right to it. Why is the Fed not raising rates yet? We know that markets, both here in the U.S. and abroad, hate surprises. So clearly this was expected today.
It was expected. Coming into today, I think it was the odds were at about 14%. That's pretty low by historical standards. And even for next month coming in, we were looking at about maybe, 35%. I think that's likely to come down because we got no indication from Janet Yellen today that they were likely to do anything next month. I think, maybe there's too much focus on the Fed right now. I think Janet Yellen's history is pretty clear here. She's going to move very, very slowly. And I think, given her dynamic, she's going to probably wait till she sees the whites of the eyes of inflation before she actually pulls the trigger.
Then I have to kind of ease into asking you about what do you think Donald Trump thinks about Jessica Yellen? He has certainly been outspoken in the past, and in the story we heard about taking action to prevent any kind of presidential overreach. Is it a concern?
Yeah, I guess it probably is. My bigger concern is really Congress. Congress has always wanted to get their hands on monetary policy, and I can't think of a bigger mistake than that. The independence of the Fed is really key to the financial dynamic for the United States. Is what makes it work is that the president and in turn Congress can't reach in there. But Janet Yellen, look, she's a public official. And in Washington, everybody's a political animal, so that dynamic clearly plays out. But I'm certainly on the side of the Fed on this one.
Yeah, so a little good news. We are near full employment, but what about the quality of jobs that have been added? And is pay rising as it should be? So much was made about the shrinking middle class here in the United States, while overseas, China's middle class continues to grow by leaps and bounds.
I keep hearing that term full employment, and by traditional metrics, that's probably true. But with the participation rate as low as it is, it doesn't ring home for a lot of Americans out there who are really working a lot more hours than they were 4 or 5 years ago, and yet their pay has remained, somewhat stagnant. Yet inflation keeps on trickling higher, and their cost of their standard of living has gone down. I think for a lot of these Americans, that they need to see more. The good news is that wage inflation is starting to pick up. We're seeing the very first signs of that.
Okay, Americans want to see more. Trump has said he wants to bring back jobs, especially the manufacturing jobs, coal, steel, rail, the auto industry. Now, is there any chance that is going to happen? Because the U.S. is manufacturing as much or more now than it ever has, and the jobs went away chiefly to modernization, computers, robotics.
I'm encouraged by what I've seen so far with the Trump administration, especially when it concerns manufacturing and just the business-friendly environment that we're getting from the president. President Obama was really much more focused on social issues and less so about business. I think a case in point was the meeting we had in Washington just yesterday with pharma CEOs meeting with the president. It was very clear that there was a dynamic there, and they seemed very encouraged, and it looked like there was going to be a trade-off. He's looking to reduce prices for Medicaid and Medicare, and in turn, they want to be able to get their product to market quicker. So I like the business dynamic that I see. He's been pretty tough on some of the industries out there. He's talked harshly about GM and Ford, but look at what they're doing. They're bringing some jobs back to the United States, so maybe it's starting to work.
Let's talk about some of the possible changes that could come under the Trump administration. Major tax cuts, infrastructure spending. Can those be achieved without adding to the huge government debt here in the United States?
Tax reform is key if this is all going to work out. I'm less encouraged about some of the other proposals I've seen regarding repatriation and an infrastructure spend. The market seems to be banking on that. I don't think that's going to happen in the same way a lot of people do. There's $3 trillion offshore that they'd like to bring back. Maybe $2 trillion of that might make it way back into the United States. You're not going to get $1 trillion infrastructure spend from that because you possibly might raise $200-300 billion. So where's the rest of the money going to come from? I think there's a lot of people on the right side of the aisle, the GOP, who are fiscal conservatives. They're not going to be so quick to spend. So that would mean more debt. So I'm a little concerned there.
David, real quickly, I hate to throw this at you real quickly, but Donald Trump's temporary Muslim ban, how is that going to play overseas? What is it going to do to jobs here in the United States? Is there going to be a hangover? Is there going to be more fallout from this?
I think it's going to pass, and I don't think it's going to do anything really to jobs here in the United States. I think the execution of this was suspect. I certainly think he should have waited till he had his AG in place to support that. He didn't get that. So it was kind of muffed out of the gate. But I do think it's prudent. Maybe look at the current system, the vetting process. But the way it was carried out was unfortunate.
Interesting. David, we're going to leave it there. Again, David Nelson, the chief strategist with Belpointe. Thanks very much. Great insight. We appreciate you joining us.
Thanks.